Peace and love. What's going on today? What's going on? What's going on? So, time to get in the lab again. Let's figure this out. Hmm. Drinking some bullshit water. Gotta get myself a glass of spring water again. How we doing today? Okay, so today's topic is morality, principle, purpose, and objectivity. Boom, 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 boom. All right, let's get after this, because this is what I feel like is something crucial that we have to start talking about in society a little bit more. We have so much philosophy. There's so many philosophers out there nowadays. There's been so many philosophers in the last 30, 40 years, 50 years, 60, the creation of the planet, right? There's so many philosophers, yet so much is not being talked about now when it comes to morality. There was a big push, right? In the age of philosophy, in all the ages, right? Because we have different periods of philosophy. There was a strong period when the church was taken over and the church was very prominent. There was a moralist philosophy. There was a lot of people who are starting to check and understand morality within philosophy, within the philosophical arena. You had people starting to speak on morals, morality, these type of things. However, after that, and once we got into more of the new age, it's backed off. We haven't really, as a community, as people, as a civilization, as society, gotten back to really having conversations, open conversations about morality and what are the terms and what are things that we have to start understanding when it comes to morals and what's your moral and ethical take on things. So today, what I wanted to do is I want to start talking about the idea of morality, the idea of principles, the idea of purpose and objectivity, and how these things are able to now work together, right, to help give you a foundation on things, on societal things, on personal things, all these different natures. So when we start to understand what these things mean, right, and that's where we have to start, right? So we have to start, all right, let me bring this down. We have to start by first defining all of these things. Once we can properly define all of these things, then maybe we'll be able to start applying them usefully, right? Okay, so I'm going to do this right offline, right? Because I don't want anyone thinking that I'm using some kind of crazy, like, trying to like put some spells on them, right? So let's start with morality first, right? What does morality mean? Morality, principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong, good and bad behavior, a particular system of values and principles of conduct, especially one held by a specified person or society, right? The extent to which an action is right or wrong. Okay, so again, morality, principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong, good and bad behavior. Now, here's how we got to come back to it. Now, morality, for some people, let me drop in and tell them, a particular system of values and principles of conduct, especially one held by a specified person or society, the extent to which an action is right or wrong. Okay, now, here's how we have to break down morality, right? Because right now, we have the idea of intention, right? What is your intention? So morality is hooked with intention. So when we look at morality, moral is what's right or wrong, right? So the problem is that within the New Age movement, right, which is fire, there's a lot of fire to the New Age movement. There's a lot of good philosophies and stuff coming out of this movement. However, when it comes to morality and principle and things like that, we're kind of missing it because of the purpose of things we're taking the wrong way. We're taking all these things for granted, right? So what's your intention behind the things that you do? Are you acting in a good way? Are you acting for the greater good, right? Because now is when you have to start looking at the good for yourself. We talk about the holographic universe, we talk about quantum theory. You are the creator of your reality. Yes, you are. Now within that, however, you're coexisting realities, right? So it's like if we're watching a movie, right? You're watching a particular movie. However, there's a movie going around your movie, right? Do you understand what I mean? So it's like you're watching a movie and they're watching a movie in the movie. That's what we have to start to break down to understand reality. So within this, you have a whole hierarchy of things going on. So when we talk about morals, right? When I talk about the distinction between good and evil, the distinction between right and wrong, there's a polarity there. There's no grayness, right? There's no grayness because it has to do with your intention. Because you can always have, no matter what it is, if you have a bad intent, the action is bad, right? I can be doing something so nice for someone, right? However, if on the inside I'm only doing it to receive something from that person, I'm morally wrong. Even though I might not be doing something bad, morally there's something going on there. There's a wrong, right? So morality for me is linked with intention. Now, a lot of people are going to argue with me on that, right? And I know, and I'm open for that, because in a sense, like if you're having good intentions on things and your intention was good, usually the deed is very good if your intent is 100% good. If there's ever, like, okay, I use this with like fruit, right? Fruit is always 100% good, right? Because fruit is only meant to nourish. It's not meant to do anything else. So whenever I use something for a selfish thing, so okay, let's say marijuana, right? Marijuana, the plant, has a lot of benefits to it. There's so many benefits to marijuana, right? I can, when I take it, when I eat it, when I use it as a herb, when I do those things, make a tincture out of it, I get all these good medicinal properties from marijuana. However, the second I combust marijuana and light it on fire, I now turn THC to THX. THX is a neurotoxin. Shout out to African Holistic Health. Like Dr. Laila Africa, you can check that out. Like, look at that. Besides the fact that just the smoke is bad for your lungs, when you actually combust marijuana, you actually turn it into a different chemistry. You change the chemistry of the plant, turn it to THX. That's why they call you dope. Dope because it makes you dopey, slow, all that stuff, right? So because you had a bad and you didn't have the proper intent when you use marijuana, you were using it to be healed and cleansed, right? You're using it to get high, right? There's a side effect already playing out, right? There's already something showing you that the morality behind what you're doing is wrong. So your intent is wrong. There's no way the action can be 100% good, right? You might be able to get some good things out of it if you quote unquote transmute it, and use it properly, but you're still going to have a bad effect because you're still not supposed to need a crutch like that. Not supposed to be abusing and using something to get something that you can get naturally. Sebi? Okay. So when I speak about morality, when I speak about that, it has to do with intent first. We have to talk about people's intentions. And that's the problem that we have with morality today. Morals, everyone's having different problems with people. I put a post to it, and I had a family member go on to talk about, yeah, but the morals and principles of most people today, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's because we're not talking about intent. You're just talking about general morals and principles, but we're not talking about the intent behind it. Because a lot of things are just like a lot of the information that we receive today, a lot of things like that, we don't do any research into it. It's not critically thought. If I don't critically think the information and walk myself through the information, then it's going to be hard for me to come up with the distinction between the right or wrong, right? So if I have a great intention behind anything that I do, you see these people, right? It's like those people where they mess up, but it's like, yo, they're trying. So like, boom, it's still something good, you know. Like if I went home today and someone was washing and cleaning my whole house, but they put everything back in the wrong place, I'm still happy that they did that. But their intention was good, right? They could have put like, you know how it is. Remember when you were a kid and your mom like cleaned your room and all of a sudden, like, yo, where's my video games? Yo, where's my? It's like you don't know where anything's at, right? But you knew that she cleaned your room. The intent was good, so you're like, but you're still happy, like, yo, my room's clean. But it's like, damn. But you know, like, there's a difference here. So when we talk about these basic things, right, we have to start to understand what the words mean, right? So distinction between right and wrong has to first start with the intention. What's the intent? Is the intent for an overall good or bad? So that's when people have these conversations of the presidents, all these different foreign leaders and things of that nature, what was their intention behind what they're doing? And that's where we kind of get caught up with the two sides of it. What are the intent? We know that there's some bad intentions that are out there. That's why a lot of these actions that are being taken by political parties, things of this nature, aren't really like leading to overall good, because you know there's bad intention mixed in there. You can see that with trade agreements. You can see that with all that. So because there's not 100% intentionally good behaviors going on, right, we're not getting 100% good results. So the fact is that the only way you can get morally into a righteous, good place is if you just are doing things for good intention, doing things without the intent of harm of others, without the intent of self-glory, pride. That's why, because all these things, understanding these topics usually come from religions, right? Like, so like most of your morality-based teachings, your principles come from a religion or a secular thing, because it takes self-mastery. And that's like the big thing about religion. People can talk whatever they want about it, but it helps the thought process of these books are helping to refine you. Like, you have to be refined, right? You have to be able to kind of discipline yourself, because I can't understand morality, principles, purpose, and truth until I discipline myself. Sorry about that. If I'm undisciplined in my day-to-day actions and the day-to-day things I do, of course I'm never going to be able to find principle, purpose in whatever I'm doing, because I'm not disciplined enough to understand what that means. So you have to have a form of discipline. The whole idea that everything is beautiful, everything is love, that's not true either. That's not true either. It's not the right or the left. It's the middle ground. That's the hardest way. That's why it's so narrow, because it's just the middle. Like, it's because it's so easy to be on one extreme or the other. You look at how easy it is for someone to be either a Democrat or a Republican. But it's hard for someone to just sit in the middle of both issues and be like, I'm neither, because they always feel like they're pulled on one side or the other. Like, I talk to some people, they think I'm a super liberal. I talk to some people, they think I'm conservative. Why? Because I just try and sit on the middle. I don't try and really pander. People be like, oh, I'm so hard on. No, just figure out the middle. So morality has to do with right and wrong, good and bad, right? What is your intention on a situation? What's your intention? If your intention is 100% good, I guarantee it's going to be a good and right thing, right? I don't know too many people that have 100% good intentions and end up doing horrible, shady, bad things, right? When your intention's right, it always ends up being right. When your intention's wrong, you always see an outplay of it. There's always something that's like, oh, that's a little weird. Whenever there's 100% good intentions, you see it and you feel it come out of that situation. Now we're going to go over principle. Principle. This is beautiful, right? Principle. A fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behavior, or for a chain of reasoning, right? A rule or belief governing one's personal behavior, morally correct behavior and attitudes, a fundamental source or basis of something, right? So principle. A principle is a foundational truth or proposition that serves as a foundation for a system of belief or behavior, or for a chain of reasoning. Okay, principles. So now we see what a principle is, right? Principle is a rule or belief governing one's personal behavior, a fundamental truth. Do you see why it's a problem for us now today to understand morality, principle, purpose, objectivity? Because it comes from having to understand truths. So the problem with mainstream science today is, if you look up science today, it's a lot of proofs, right? But no truths. A bunch of proofs, but no truth. So a lot of things that they can say, yeah, these things kind of make sense. Some of these things could be logically, like, kind of extravated from like this wide scheme of things. But what is the truths? How many truths do we have, right? Because to be honest, even Darwinian evolution isn't a truth, right? Because the physicists, right? Physicists, so math, right? The mathematicians, every single scientific discovery always ends up getting proven, right? All the things we know are truths end up getting proven mathematically. Why? Because the universe works in mathematics, right? The phi ratio, like all these different things that go on within the universe, you see That's all meticulous and specific math, right? So in order for math to be able to, and science to be able to work, it has to then go through mathematics. This is why they're always looking for the missing key, the missing chain, the missing link in evolution. Why? In Darwinian evolution theory. Because the math doesn't add up. The ratios were too crazy, like the percentages of chance that humans would become the way they are today had to be these crazy percentages that happened over the shortest amount of time. So when you look at just the understanding of that one thing, you'll find that we're basing a lot of our ideas and thoughts and stuff like that on something that's not a fundamental truth, right? So we have a lot of principle that's based off this theory, right? This Darwinian theory, but the Darwinian theory is not a fundamental truth. So how can we now create that as a principle, right? A fundamental truth that we build other things and systems on and beliefs and behaviors when it still hasn't even been considered a truth and a truth yet. Hasn't been made a proof and truthed. So if it's not truth, how can we now make it a principle? Now when you see the breakdown now, that's how, just like the same thing as morality. When you talk about morality, right, has to do with rights and wrongs. So if you have a bad intention on something, no matter what, you're going to see the play out of the right and wrong, right? So when someone has a bad intention, it never is a fully good thing. Sebi? But with principle, right, if I don't base my principle on a fundamental truth, what does that mean about the principle? That means that's going to be flawed, right? So if I try and build a house on a crooked foundation, what's going to happen to the house? Is the house going to be able to support living? Going to be able to support life? No. It's not going to be able to support life. So, just like anything, if I'm trying to build something, I got to make sure I build it on truth, right? So purpose and objectivity. So morality. What's your intention? What's the reasoning for you doing what you're doing? It's important because that means everything. That tells you what's going to look like in the end. If your intention is really actually good and actually coming from a good place, you always see a good play out. The problem is, like, you look at a banking system, you look at anything like this. The original thought, right? One guy had gold, another guy had a safe. It's like, hey man, can I keep some gold in your safe? I got you. Put it in my safe. Then all of a sudden that guy wanted to think about how to make money off of it. So he's like, all right, you charge me a piece of gold a month to keep your gold in my safe. Right? Just a basic. So the second he came up with that thought, then all of a sudden you saw the banking system create the way it is today. Now we have fractional investments. We have all these things being broken down into pennies. Like most people use their savings accounts and stuff, and you're not making any dividends like you used to on CD accounts and things of that nature. So you see where the intention's not there anymore. The good intent is not, the intention is not for people to be able to save money, gain money, and all that stuff. It's for the banks to make money because most of your banks are private, so they're in to make money for themselves. So when you see that, right, the intention, the morality doesn't match up. So for that to be a principal use, like for us to be using economics as a principle of our society, doesn't make sense either. Because if everything's a privatized corporation, right, and they're out for growth, they're out for more money, advancement, things of this nature, are they a principal thing that we're supposed to be holding in society? No, we're not supposed to be holding them as a principle. So economics should not be one of the principles and pillars of our society today, right? Because it's not based on a fundamental truth. And there's no morality behind it, right? So we see here that morally correct behavior and attitudes. Morally correct behavior and attitudes help to form a man of principle, right? So morally correct behavior and attitudes are not what's being taken place in the banking system. We've seen the Big Short, we've seen all these movies, we've seen The Wolf of Wall Street. So you see what's happening in the economic field, right? Is that something that is morally correct behavior and attitude? No. So should that be a principle of our society, a foundational, fundamental thing in which system is built and a belief? No, right? Cool. So we broke those two down. Now, purpose, right? Here we go. Let's get into purpose. Purpose. We're going at it. Purpose. Here we go. Definition. The reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. The verb. Have as one's intention or objective. Okay, so purpose, right? Morality has to do, look at how much these words have to do with each other. The reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. The purpose of something, right? So objectively speaking, there's a lot of things that we're not using for their proper purpose, right? And the purpose of which they exist. So why do things exist? That's what we have to start questioning right now. Like, as our generation start moving up and making these next turns in the next few years, we have to start questioning purpose, right? The reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. Okay, so now we have to first start. Let's go back to the banks. Let's go back to a bank. Purpose. What's the purpose of a bank? To hold money. Now, that's the borderline. What else is the purpose of the bank? The purpose of the bank is to make money for the owners of the banks. Okay, so now you already see where the purpose shifts, right? You see where the purpose shifts. So if we have morality, right, that's your intent. So what's your intent? Is the intent of something purposely on the common good? Is it on the good of society? Is it for the well-being of society? Or is it for the well-being of one, right? That's a question. Principle, right? In order to create a principle now, you have to first have morality. So you first have to know what the intention, because morality is based on intention, right and wrong. Okay, so I have to have a right intention first. So once I create the right intention, then I can have morality. Now, once I'm morally sound, right, I can understand right and wrong, then I can create a principle, right, which we know is a foundational truth based on the character of a person, something that you build a system on. So once I know rights and wrongs, then I can create principles. I can create foundational truths within the right and wrong to now progress myself in the right and wrong, or digress in the right and wrong. Okay? Then there's so now it comes for the reasoning why I do this. So I created something. Now what's the reason for the creation? So you need morality. Then I need to create principles. Then I can create purpose, right? But if I don't have the morality, then it's hard for me to create a purpose, right? And if I don't have the morality, I can't create a principle because I don't know rights and wrongs in order to create a fundamental truth, right? So these are all necessary. These are all 100% necessary things that we have to start thinking about, right? What's one's intention, right? The reason for something to be created. What are the reasons for a lot of things that we have? Why were they created, right? That's why I don't hate technology. You shouldn't hate tech. No one here should hate technology, right? And you have to remember that technology is such a broad idea, right? When the first person picked up a rock to crack something instead of like slamming his fist, that was a form of technology, right? So we've been messing with technology forever, right? But it's the forms of technology which we're talking about now, right? What types of technology are we using? What's the purpose for the technology, right? Because you have, even on your phone, you have like Duolingo, you have apps that will teach you other languages, you have apps that help you find like food in the wild, you have compasses, you have all these different things, right? So there's not 100% bad reasoning for a lot of the things that technology has brought us. However, because we don't have understanding of morality and principle, right, we now start using all this technology for other things, for things that aren't helping to progress us, for doing things that just like kind of serve the lower nature of ourselves. So within your morality and principle, purpose is so easily defined, because if I have good morals and good principles, my purpose is always going to be there, right? So when you look at the system today and a lot of things that you're seeing, you have to just understand that the morals and principles aren't there. So the purpose behind it is never really altruistic. And that's the problem that we have today, right? That's the problem that most people have today. You have this with food companies, you have this with jobs, you have this with financial systems, is that the purpose is never really fully there because the morals and principles don't back it up. And that's what we have to start doing more. Like there needs to be more of a morality push within the new age. And that's what I need. That's what like one of my biggest things that I want to see from new age, like the whole new age movement, new age, but like no, but there's got to be a morality push. There's got to be a principle push, because just doing whatever you feel and wish all the time and yeah, everything is love. Those things are cool. It is in a sense, but only once your morals and principles are there enough for you to understand what that really means and entails, right? If I don't have any moral or principle foundation, like love is expressed in a million different ways. Like, so you have to be able to now peep, and we got to be able to make a change. I can't really be here saying that morals and principles and blah, and speaking on all these different things, saying that love is expressed and do this, but if I don't really know morally what's right and wrong, I don't know principally what's right and wrong, and what it means to create a foundational truth, I don't know what a fundamental truth is, then I can't do this. Like I have some new age people that talk to me new age and then believe in Darwinian evolution and 110%, they think it's a fact, it's a truth. But like when you then go and do some research, it only takes you like 2 Google searches to find out that it's not really been proven yet. It's a valid theory, but the physicists, the mathematicians haven't accepted it yet, and that's why they keep having to find new discoveries. That's why there's always a news, some kind of like Times or something like that article once a year, like we might have cracked the code in evolution, or we're always looking for the missing piece, the final key. We just like think about in the last 10 years, we found out that humans lived 200,000 years longer than we thought they lived before. So to hold on to any of these things, it's kind of ludicrous, right? We have to start building ourselves on fundamental, foundational truths, right? And then move from there. Because all this like pseudoscience and like things that aren't really proven yet, they don't matter. A lot of kids are learning a lot of theories. You have kids in school learning theories, learning case studies, and all this, but like no objective truth. Because if I'm always learning the theories about things and people are teaching to me like it's the truth, how am I supposed to ever really understand the truth if all I've been being taught is theories that haven't been made truth yet? So we have to start to break down these things, right? So what should be the purpose of anything? So the purpose of anything should be for the betterment, right? The betterment of all, like, right? You talk about the betterment of all, because in a sense, like, that's how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be living as communal beings. When you look at some science says that humans are supposed to live in groups no larger than like 100. So if science is saying that, right, and most of the science, and this science has to do it has from the book *Sapiens*. I was with these 2 English beings at my farm. They were there. They went there for like 3 days and helping. They're both like going to school for biology, and one of them had read this book *Sapiens*. It was talking about theories of Darwinian evolution. Everyone saw it on the Animal Planet. They did a documentary one time where it was like staging humans from like fish all the way up to like man today, and like in between, like, so this is like the book that kind of like backs that, represents it. And it was talking about how humans are supposed to live in a lot smaller groups, communal groups, but you have to then say yes, okay. But if you think if they had like, this is like known science, this is known for society today. So if you look at your major cities, things of this nature, anything, and it says anything over that 100, they have to start seeing and believing in a third party in order to fulfill tasks and for people to stay self-actualized within society, because there needs to be something to do things for, because once you reach those numbers, things become a lot easier, blah, 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 which is like getting a little out of control. But when you look at it, that's where you see the idea of a government comes in, right? Because government means like a controlling of mind. When you see people, the way they use that notion of God, all these different things, like you see it fallen as a being that they're under, trying to like work towards and work for, instead of like the true embodiment like we're at. So as of yin and yang, here are the laws of yin and yang, facts, I just saw that. But anyway, when we are breaking it down, you have to start to understand that a lot of the truths of society today aren't really, we're not working in truth and principle. So if we're not working truth, principle, like we're going to be having to go through a lot of these things. So first of all, you see most of our societies, most of our like communities, all these things are in far larger terms than we see that is optimal for our race and for our civilization. So if we're in a lot bigger societies, we're in a lot more people, spending a lot more places, doing all this kind of stuff, we're already living against ourselves. So we're living backwards. So when you start to think about evil, evil is just living backwards, right? So if you're in a society, if you're in a city like Boston, right? Boston's right near me, and there's thousands of people in this like little square, right? We're already living against like something that we know societally as a human being, as like your race, like the understand, and I don't mean race when I say race, like people think race now, they mean as in like man, right? Human. You are already living against your natural idea, so you have to start to break things back, right? So we should be living in smaller communities. Now we start to look at objectivity. You want to look at the objectivity? We have to start looking at truth and speaking about truth, right? The I knows. Like I know we need to be more south. I know, right, that we need to be in control of our sources. How many humans are in control of their source nowadays? When I say sources, I mean food, water, electricity, things of this nature. Are we? No, right? So that's another problem that we're having. Another problem, right, is objectively we're not here with the foundation. So like technology and science and all these different topics that people get caught up in, and even government and even racial injustice, even all these things end up becoming things that are next level conversations. Next level. First of all, we need to all agree everyone's equal. Then within that equality, there's differences, but not like superiority differences, just differences. And once you start to exist and understand that there's just differences and that there's an equality with differences, then you're okay, then we're fine. We can set that aside. So now that gets rid of a million other topics. But when we start talking, we need to first talk about objective truth. So all of people should first start by talking about how do we get clean water again? How do we get in a place where our communities are now creating food outlets to support the people so that we don't have to depend on logistics, we don't have to depend on the food service chain. Like, how do we get to that point? How do we start creating and proliferating sustainable energy sources? How do we start doing those three things? 4, how do we start getting everyone in some form of shelter? Why are those not the conversations that come up first? Why does everyone want to talk about gun violence before we talk about these things? That's when I'm talking about purpose. Well, how much purposeful conversation do we have? Because we're not having conversation that is going to push the culture, the people, all these things forward. These aren't doing anything for us. So I have to first start to understand what is purposeful, right? What is purposeful? The reason for which something is done, created, or for which something exists. What is a purposeful creation? So everything has a purpose, but what's purposeful, right? When we look at morality and principle, what are things that are created that make sense within those? So you look at solar panels, right? You look at like things for hydro, like turbines, like look at wind turbines, look at these things. These are purposeful creations, purposeful, right? It came out of a purpose that was morally and principally correct, right? Because you never see, like, with solar, does solar kill people? Like, is there some kind of side effect to solar? Is there a side effect to solar energy? Like, do we know of side effects? So does it like steal the sun's power or something? No, okay. So there's really no problem with solar energy. However, with coal, with using like gas, oil, all these things, there's karma with those, right? Does solar really have karma? Not really. Not really, right? Solar energy, the way we're using it, not really. Like if it was to replace, we'd be in a way better standing. Now, like when we look at all this stuff, that's the question. What's the purpose? Is it purposeful? Is a bank purposeful? Not really. Not anymore. It's not like it's helping you gain money. It's helping you keep money in a place. They're even taking money from you now. Like if like a monthly maintenance fee, like yo, I've had a bank account like a year. Why? Because monthly maintenance fees. It doesn't make sense to me. Even if you're getting bread, I used to be getting just like money just transferred in. I was safe because I was like, yo, I was getting the amount of money like digitally wired in my account, but still like a monthly maintenance fee. What are you maintaining? It's a digit. It's technology. Like, fuck, it's numbers in a computer. Like, it's not like there's someone guarding my money. Like, it's just like monthly maintenance. Like, or like going into the vault where my money is and like cleaning that shit, making sure. Like, it's in a computer. It's a digit in a computer. So what is a monthly maintenance fee? What is an overdraft fee? What is an overdraft fee? Like, do you ever ask me, what is the overdraft fee? Why are you letting me take out more money than I have and then giving me a punishment for it? What are these things, right? What is this? What's the purpose of that? It's to make someone else more money. Like, okay, cool. So is it ever going to be good? Not really, no. That's why I get upset. So like people, we have to start talking objectively about things. And the problem is a lot of times when you talk objectively, it's not really understood and it's not really pulled in. People don't like to talk objectively, right? Because objectively hurts, right? Objectivity is a problem for most. And that's okay. It's supposed to be hard. Objectivity is not supposed to be easy. And that's why it takes time to get there, right? But you first have to start working on your morality and your principles first. You start working out your morality, principles, and purpose, objectivity becomes easy, right? So I was having trouble with the way people express, like, I don't know, the way people express to one another. When I say like expression, I'll say intimate. Well, okay, here we go. Here's one. Intimacy. Understanding intimacy from an objective spot, right? And a purposeful spot. This is one that people go crazy at. It's okay. So objectivity from like when we look at intimacy from an objective and purposeful spot is just the feeling that you're connecting with someone, feeling the feeling that someone has good feeling, good vibes, is doing things for you, is helping you, is making sure that they're is like near you, closeness, all these different things. However, when we look at society today, what is intimacy turned into? Strictly sexual in nature, right? Just be honest, right? Whenever someone has an intimacy problem with their significant other, it never has to do with like, yo, they don't rub my feet like they used to. Like they don't just hold my hand when I'm sitting on the couch. They don't be laying on my chest. Like intimacy is like a really big thing that we have to have a conversation about, and we have to have a conversation about it purposely, right? So most of this has to do with the understanding of sexuality. Where does sexuality come from? What does sexuality mean? All these different things. And that's where purpose comes in. Purpose, right? Purpose for you to be acting out and expressing yourself in a sexual manner is for procreation. That's just the objective fact. Let's just talk about the objective fact here. Objective fact, bang, right? Sex is for procreation. Objective fact. That's the truth. That's the fact. Matter of fact. That's the foundation, right? So now everything after is a defeated purpose onto what that is. So what is human intimacy? Right? What is human intimacy? What does that mean? If we took the purpose and principle of what an act is, and then if we looked at human intimacy today, we would see that as backwards. So if I automatically see that this is for purpose, when we talk about objectivity, what's the purpose? What's the design purpose for this thing? It's for procreation. Okay, so when we say the design purpose for this is procreation, that's the pure objectivity of it. Everything else that takes place after that is a subjective reasoning that we placed on it. It makes me feel good, right? If I feel like I'm closer, I feel this and this. Now you're putting a subjective thing on it. Because when you look at intimacy, intimacy is two people gaining closeness. which is the same thing. Like if you have an intimate conversation with someone, you can have a conversation with someone and leave the conversation closer to that person than you were before you had the conversation. That means there's levels to intimacy, right? And we're not even ready to really understand that. So you look at your problem with the male-female dynamic, it becomes, the problem is because purpose and objectivity were taken out. And then we're filled it in with a lot of things, a lot of subjectivity. And when it comes to feelings, everyone feels everything differently, but we feel things the same in a sense as well. So that's why some things were allowed to be turned super subjective, because we started to create ideas of things like romantics, right? Romantics. How does that play into the objectivity and purpose of the union between two people? Because you talk about the wooing, you talk about connection, right? What's connection? What are these things? What are these different topics? If I don't know what right or wrong is, right? If I don't know what principles are, right? So if I don't know what's right or wrong, I don't know what the purpose for things are. I don't have any clue what the purpose. I can't understand really objectivity. How am I supposed to create principles? And when we talk about a relationship, how two people relate to one another, there are principles, there are truths that have to be held on to in order to make every relationship work, right? How do I relate to you has to have a principle standing. So that means I gotta be morally correct, right? I gotta be morally correct and hold objectivity to be able to have any form of relation to another being, because there's gotta be foundational truths that we can meet on, right? So once we can meet on these foundational truths, then we can start to build and develop all these other things. That's not saying that I'm someone, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to just like life in general, I don't get subjective. But like, like, man, that's a struggle for every human. Like, that's one of the human struggles. I hope you don't see me saying this because like this is all things that like I 100% covered. No, these are things that I know and I'm working on just like everyone else out here, right? But I'm just one who's want to speak on it, like morality. I just think there's no such thing as morality in the New Age movement, because everyone just says it's about how you feel. And if you're always just about how you feel, like when does the truth come in? Because the truth doesn't care how you feel. So how can you have principle if everything's on how you feel? You can't have principle when everything's too much about feelings. It has to be about a mix. You have to be able to use your right and your left brain. And that's the problem here, is that we're like, a lot of people are too much in their right brain and want to feel everything. And then some people are too much in their left brain and want to analyze and see the science behind it, right? I got to see the research before I feel this. And then I have some people who just completely blind eye any research. I'm just like, yo, it doesn't feel right. But where's the middle? Like, where's the ability to use both sides? I uploaded a video today about all humans use 100% of their brain. You do all the time. But you might not use all of your brain, as in both sides of your brain. You might not be using the right and the left hemisphere. However, you're always at some point using your brain 100%. That's weird. People always think, oh, we only use 10% of our brain. So we are already based on, again, we base a lot of these things, like we were taught that in school. You only use 10% of your brain. When we already see that science today has showed us that that's not true. We don't use only 10% of our brains. So a basic thing like that, where are we at? A lot of people build truths on that. A lot of people have built principles, like, and put purpose behind things that people do on the notion that we only use 10% of our brains. So if they put purpose behind it, they put principles behind it, but it wasn't considered a truth, should those things have principles and purpose behind them? No. Dang, it's simple like that, but it's hard like that, you know? It's simple like that, but it's hard like that. Drink your distilled water. It's a lifesaver. So anyway, morality, principle, purpose, objectivity. Has anyone here read African Holistic Health by Layla Africa? I would suggest you read it. If anyone hasn't read Alkaline Herbs and Health, you guys should read it. All these things are going to give you insights on the thing, because you have to start looking for the insights. Because when we talk about all these things, morality, principle, purpose, objectivity, talk about the big four, right? You have to start to add these things in, because in a sense, there's so many schools of thought out there. There's so many things being taught to you by places and things. Thanks. Sorry, I'm just looking at the thing. Think for yourself, question authority. Okay, cool. I'll just check in some of the comments quick. There are a lot of things that we're being taught, we're being preached at, we're being trying to be convinced of, that don't fit morally, principally, and purposefully, and they're not based in objectivity. So once we can break these things down, as a culture and as a community, we're going to start to make big pluses, because right now you have a good movement, like the New Age movement is cool. There's a lot of cool people, a lot of cool things are coming out of it. But we have to make sure you don't let this get like the hippie movement. Like, we don't want this to be like the flower children, right? Where everyone starts like doing things for experience, like trying to have these crazy experiences, but then forgetting the objectivity and the principle of everything, because they're so important and key. It's so key and important that we can now build on these things. We can build purpose, right? We got to build morally, principles, like things of that nature. So how do we, easy way, quick wrap up, how do you tell if something's morally correct? What was the intention of the person when they created? If you had good intentions behind something, it was morally correct. It was morally correct. Simple. If all your intentions were pure. That's why they say you with a pure heart. Like, if your intentions are good, then you're doing something morally correct. That's why they say you have to have a pure heart. Then you'll always be doing the right thing, because about the purity of the heart. So morality has to do with pure and has to do with intention. So remember, morality and intention are linked, right? Now, principle is a foundational, fundamental truth. So principle has to do with objectivity. So if I'm objective and I can use things and think objectively, I can have principles, right? And I need the moral. So like, you have to be able to use morality and objectivity to create a principle, right? So morality plus objectivity equals principle. So once I can know what's right and wrong, and then I can be open to truth, I can create principles in my life. So like for me, don't eat any animal products. I don't eat animal products. Why? Because morally, I know most of the ways that, first of all, morally, I know most of the ways that the commercial farming industry, meat industry, things like that get down. It's not morally correct. It's not just. It's not, people aren't being treated properly. Animals aren't being treated properly. Chemicals, all this stuff, it's just morally wrong, right? So, because I know it's right and wrong, then I can look at the objectivity, what it does for your health, to eat plant-based, to eat fruitarian, to eat alkaline, to eat these things. Objectively, I know those things are true. So now once I see the morality, I add the objectivity, now I set the principle. What's the foundation and fundamental truth? Is that you shouldn't be eating meat, right? So it took morality plus the objectivity to now create the principle. So because I know it's unjust the way they treat animals, it's unjust what the chemicals they use in the food and how they be treating the food, it's unjust how they treat meat and all that stuff, what they're doing it to it so that before you eat it, then I see objectively, right, what the chemicals do to you, how good a plant-based diet, fruitarian diet, all these diets, eating alkaline, eating these things are objectively the truth there. Boom, now I create the principle, which is I only eat fruit, vegetables, right? Certain grains here and there, but you want to be more like as much fruit and vegetables as you can, eat from the earth, right? Eat nuts, eat from the earth, like key, you never go wrong, just eat from the earth. Boom, that's how I make that. Now, after that, the purpose behind what I'm doing is easy. I already show you the purpose of why I'm doing it. Just in all of that, the purpose all makes sense. So now, when I go and take my action, I can be confident. I can be confident behind the purpose for what I'm doing it, because it morally made sense and it objectively makes sense. Once it morally and objectively makes sense, boom, the purpose is easy. Because a lot of people now, the problem is like we don't have exactly good intentions. We don't have the proper like purpose behind why we're doing things, so it's hard for us to defend it. So like if I say, yo, why you eating meat? People get mad. Like you vegans always talking shit. When it's like, yo, I drive down the street, I see flame grilled burgers all over the place. I mean, me asking you why you eat meat. But anyway, they're like, yo, why you do this? But their purpose is like, oh, protein, right? But when you jump in that purpose more, it doesn't make sense. So that's why they get angry, because their argument can only go so far. They didn't even really research it. It was just like a cultural thing, things of that nature. Same thing when you see people like, we talk to them about money. Talk to people about money, they tell you it's a good tool, right? And then you question the tool. What is a tool? A rock slamming a walnut is a tool, right? That's a good tool to me. Like, shit, that was a great tool, right? What is a good tool? Again, when we bring it down to the moral and principle, right? Morally, is money good or bad? People be like, well, it depends on what it's for. No, okay. So now like when you see money is, okay, now I should probably break down why money is morally bad. Okay, let me break down why money is morally bad real quick. This is a long video. Money is morally wrong because it makes people now take something that is a quality and quantify it, right? People are qualitative things. We're qualities. There's qualities that make up people, right? You are a quality human being, right? Every human being has qualities, traits, and things of that nature, right? The problem is that you're now told that you need to quantify it. So now you have to put value on your qualities and your things that make you different. Now, the problem with society today is that we do not know what value and what values are, because our morals, our principles, and our purpose are not properly defined. Now, when I say that, that's because our perceived value does not match up with actual value and cost. So when we talk about a pair of Michael Jordan sneakers, Michael Jordan sneakers only cost $20 to create, right? But we'll pay $300 for them. So that shows us right there that we do not understand what value is when the hard cost to make it was $30. However, we placed a value of $300 on this shoe. Okay? So when you now have to think about money and the monetization of qualities, traits, and things like that, you have to go based on someone else's perceived value of the quality of the thing, whatever it is. So just like when you go for a job, right? And you could be the next Einstein, right? You go to a place and they say, you are worth so-and-so dollars an hour. There's the problem. Because now you have to sit there and say, okay, I am only worth, my value is and my qualities are only quantitatively expressed as this number, right? And now I have to do with that number, I have to do a certain amount of things within that matrix, right? So matrix is just a place with predetermined and set laws, right? Not created by you. Like if I said, like I can step into here, there's a certain expectation of me, certain way I have to do things, certain way I have to be. I'm just gonna step in someone else's thought matrix, their own realm, right? So you are a quality person. You should never be trying to understand quantitatively what that quality, right? Quantitative. You shouldn't be trying to mix the two because you don't understand, right? You're more valuable than anything, right? When you say that, people are like, oh, they'll be like, oh, that's soft. No, but it's true because you're hard, like you're valuable. When you start waking up and you do the straw man, right? Everyone by now has done the straw man, and they've looked up the number on their birth certificate and this New York Stock Exchange and how much money they get put in there. When you do that, basically you just see like what your worth is to people. You're perceived, like the value of you is very valuable, right? But the problem is that the perceived value based on where you're trying to work doesn't add up to that, right? So that's why they say like money and jobs and stuff are curses. They are curses because they make you now make a compromise. Because I have to make a compromise on who I am in order to accept a hourly wage rate. Because what does everyone think in the morning? Because when you look at it, you see it. When you will flip through a magazine and you see a Ferrari, you picture yourself in that because you think you're worth that. Like, you think that that's your value, because it is your value. You're worth 1,000,000 Ferraris. That's why you could even aspire to have it. So when you aspire to have something, it's because you believe you're worth enough to have it. You're valuable enough to acquire this, right? So if you look at what every person thinks, they think they can have anything. They think they want everything because you're that valuable, right? But the problem is that money in the systems today don't allow your value to be expressed because they create the loopholes. You create the clubs, you create the this and that. Because it's not about just who works hard anymore. People who say that, it's a lie. It's a half truth. There's only half, like, there's a half of the truth. It's not just about working hard. It's not just about being like super like brainy and super, no, it's not about any of that, right? There's so much more. So, and to say that and say it's just about A, B, and C, it's taken away from a lot of the X, Y, and Z, right? You have to remember that. So where are we going? What are we doing? How are we breaking this down? Where am I leaving you guys, right? What I'm leaving you guys today is not for me to tell you like what's morally right, what's principally right, what's purposefully right, what's objectively right. Because I believe that if you spend real time on morality, right, you spend real time thinking about morality, people start making videos on morality, right? People start thinking about what a principle is, right? What does it mean to have principles, right? What do these things mean? What's purpose? What is purpose? And I think about it objectively. What are the purpose of things? Then everything falls in together. Then you're okay. Everything, you don't even need someone to tell you. Because the problem is we're not breaking down the 4 pillars first before we get to the overall thought. I need to first morally understand it, then make it a principle. Like once I understand the morality and the objectivity, I can create the principle. And then purpose just falls in. Purpose just falls in. Because we all know purpose has to do with morality. So once I understand morality and objectivity and I can just set my course on that, principles are easy. And then we'll be able to step up. Like society will be able to take that next step. Because right now we're at a point where people are having amazing breakthroughs in the way they're viewing things, perceptions, knowledge on any subject. Healing modalities. There are people healing in all different ways. There are people actually making journeys to heal, actually making journeys to learn, all these different great things. So once we see that people are now doing this, the idea and the thought is now aligned with it. It's now to start breaking down what's morally correct, what's principally correct, what's purpose, what's objectivity, what is it? Define that within your life. And once you can start defining that and have actual knowledge of it, then you can move forward. Like then we can move forward in all different ways because a lot of us are going to find the same truths. That's the thing. There are only certain truths that are out there, right? And if we all just start looking for truth and we don't care about how we feel about the truth and we just look strictly for the truth, you find it. You find it. It's very easy. You'll find it. You'll find a lot of truths. There's a lot of truths out there. Now people be like, yo, you just think you know? I don't think, like I know some of the truths. Like I know. I'm gonna say I know. Like people be like, you can't say I can. I'd say I know. There's some things that I know, right? And those are the things I speak on. So for today, it was good for you guys to sit down. Thank you for joining. Right? Someone made it like the whole time. Shout out. Sorry, this was a long video. But morality, principle, purpose, objectivity. Look into those words. Define them for yourself. Define it. Like, be objective. And have your morals correct. Purpose and the principle falls in right away. But I love you all. I love myself. Thank you guys for spending time. Thank you for allowing me to share. Thank you for sharing. I am nature, I am nurture, I am truth, I am love, I am justice, I am all these things. I am everything, but I am nothing as well. You hearing me say this is reassuring yourself that you are all the things that you feel you are. Facts. Peace.